You can only react with horror to a situation now in the UK, apparently a democracy, where prisoners are held in appalling circumstances. And I should be transparent, one of my friends has been in prison since August 2024. She's been detained without trial. She's not on hunger strike. They have been they've been prevented from getting access to their mail.
Welcome to our program. Today we are honored to host Lizzie Eldridge, chair of Scottish PEN, an internationally recognized advocate for writers' freedoms and a strong activist for Palestinians' rights. And she is known for all over the world for her position that supports justice for all peoples around the world and for the Palestinians. She organized many campaigns and she had raised awareness of many nations around the world in order to put pressure on the occupation state of Israel to stop genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And after the ceasefire agreement, she continued her efforts in order to enable the people of Palestine to gain their national rights, starting with justice, as no peace without justice. Welcome to the program, Lizzie.
Thank you very much, Osama, and it's a real privilege to be here.
You're welcome. As I said in the introduction, your voice is known worldwide for justice and for human rights. Now, while the Palestinians, mainly in Gaza, are going through a very catastrophic situation because of the bad weather conditions, the rainstorm, the cold, as 7 children died of cold. And of course, the problem here is not the weather condition, it is the Israeli blockade and the Israeli aggression on Gaza. So how you perceive the plight of the people there?
It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking, Osama. And as you say, it's not because of the weather. You know, people had houses to live in. Before this genocide began, people had houses to live in. People had hospitals, people had schools, people had everything. And now, over 2 years later, people have nothing. And the tents that people are living in, I mean, are not fit for anything. And the Israelis are deliberately blockading Gaza and preventing mobile homes going in, they're preventing shelter, they're preventing medicines, they're preventing food, as per usual. So what's happening now is not about the weather, but about genocide by other means.
Yeah, and so what is the role of the international solidarity activists who support the rights of the Palestinian people today to show the world that the problem is not the weather and the natural conditions, but it is Israel's continuation of its genocide, as many people around the world believe that after the signature of the ceasefire agreement at Sharm el-Sheikh, that Israel stopped its aggression. So how should we convince the people or show the people around the world that genocide is still going on?
That's a really important point, because as you say, as soon as a ceasefire, so-called ceasefire, was announced, people tended to believe it, and that was reinforced by the mainstream media. I mean, if you watch the mainstream media now, sometimes there's no mention of Palestine, no mention of Palestine in the news bulletins, you know.
Yeah.
It's like it's disappeared. So lots of people think, believe, assume that things are back to whatever normal ever was. It's really important now, as important as it ever was, to keep people aware by going out into the streets, continuing to protest, continuing to do, to raise awareness, to leaflet people, to stick posters in the streets, to keep writing to MPs, to keep doing everything and anything to keep Palestine in the forefront of people's eyes, because there's so much else going on as well, you know, which I'm sure we'll come to, like Trump invading Venezuela and kidnapping the president, you know, a woman being shot dead by a mass spice agent in America, Iran. So there's
Yes.
so many things going on that people, understandably lose sight of certain really crucial things, such as the genocide in Palestine.
Yeah, and now because of the Israeli atrocities and the unbelievable crimes that Israel committed against the people in Gaza, the media does not shed light on the situation on the other part of the occupied Palestinian territories, including the West Bank and Jerusalem. But the West Bank and Jerusalem don't have the best of times. Of course, today Israeli settlers' attacks are unprecedented, and the Israeli military forces' brutality is getting even worse in terms of detention, attacking people, demolition of Palestinians' homes. So how you follow up the situation here as Israel is recruiting militias to carry out attacks against the Palestinians, reminding the people of 1948.
Yeah. And again, that's very difficult because all the while that the genocide in Gaza has been going on, you've got the parallel situation of Israeli intensifying their attacks, intensifying the demolition, and really carrying out, as I see it, ethnic cleansing, forcing people off the lands, literally forcing them with violence, killing people, chopping down olive trees, making sure that Palestinian people have no economic security because they're losing the means of economic security. So it's a form of ethnic cleansing. But because it's been happening, I hate to say, but on a slower basis than the speed at which it's been happening in Gaza, it's like a parallel process that's been going on, and it's really difficult to get people to kind of wake up and see what's going on there. Yeah. I mean, if you watch the independent news media, then you will see it. If you watch what's coming through from the journalists in Palestine, you will see it. But if you watch the mainstream media, you won't. I mean, I saw there was an attack on a university just the other week, Birzeit University. Yeah, Birzeit, sorry. In broad daylight. Not the Israelis particularly care if it's dark or day, but I mean, it was an abomination. Did it make world headlines?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Now, Israel has the military power and the economic power. It is, representing the concept of colonialism. And when power is empty of moral accountability or moral responsibility, it's so vicious. So how you comment on, really it is the international system that those in power, and those who have power, they don't have any form of morality. So how Israel as a colonial power is benefiting from this international track today, if it's possible to call it international track?
Israel is benefiting hugely. I mean, the whole imperialist, colonialist structures, this is what it's all about, Yeah. It seems a strange thing to talk about empire because it sounds almost like science fiction. But we are talking about that. We are talking about the powers that be who are extremely wealthy. We now have billionaires really who are holding the reins of power. There is absolutely no morality. International law has been mocked, stamped on, ignored, turned upside down. We are living in a world where there are no rules, there are no laws, there's no morality. There is, and you see that in terms of the resistance movement. You see that in terms of the dignity in which Palestinians are behaving. Yet again, the Palestinians are an example to us. They're an example to the world about how to respond with dignity and humanity when all around it is chaos, bedlam, insanity. It's like a psychiatric ward, where the psychiatric patients have taken over. And we still need to push back against it. It's hard, but It's the only way we can do it, I think, Osama.
Yeah, and because of this general situation around the world, the voice of justice, the activists, I mean you yourself and your comrades and the people who struggle for justice in Palestine and elsewhere in the world, are facing a campaign against them by the governments. And we all hear of the suffering of Palestine Action prisoners who are held in prisons in the UK, and a number of them have been on hunger strike. So how do you see the media coverage and the interest in general in the UK in the issue of Palestine Action hunger strikers?
That again has been appalling. There has been a silence on the media which echoes the silence of the government. The government is still refusing to enter into any dialogue with the hunger strikers. They've been asked to meet the lawyers of the hunger strikers, they've been asked to meet with the families of the hunger strikers, and the government has not. There is a young woman, 31 years old. She's been in prison for about 14 months. She's being held, as they all are. She's been held in prison, detained without trial, having been arrested under the Terrorism Act, but it's still illegal. The legal time period for people to be held in detention is 6 months.
Yeah.
And they're being held for far, far longer. There is one woman, Hiba her name is, and she is now on day 72 of her hunger strike. She is dying. I mean, she is, I'm amazed she's still alive, and I hope she continues to live. But the government has been absolutely refusing to meet with the hunger strikers. So the government, which has a legal, moral, humanitarian responsibility to the hunger strikers,
yes, and
is allowing them to die.
Yeah. And Lizzie, what about the role of the human rights organizations, the local ones and the international organizations, when it comes to the issue of the hunger strikers in the UK?
They've been supportive. I mean, Amnesty International has put out statements, I think others too. I mean, you can only react with horror to a situation now in the UK, apparently a democracy, you know, where prisoners are held in appalling circumstances. And I should be transparent, one of my friends has been in prison since August 2024. She's been detained without trial. She's not on hunger strike. They have been they've been prevented from getting access to their mail. This is one of the hunger strikers' demands, is that the censorship ends. They've been deprived of basic rights, rights of prisoners. They've been deprived of the right to bail. They're still inside. They've been deprived of the right to a fair trial because some of the evidence that should be made public has not been. It is deplorable, sickening. It's really, really brutal. And watching these young people on hunger strike dying in British jails is horrific.
Yeah. And what do you expect for their case? Do you think that there is going to be a solution very soon for this case?
For the hunger strikers, I can only pray. I mean, it's such a long time to be on hunger strike. Another young guy, he's been on hunger strike, I think, for about 65 days. He's been hospitalized many times. So is the woman who's on day 72. The prisons have refused to give them the proper medical treatment. When they go to hospitals, they're kept in handcuffs, they're physically restrained to the point that doctors are asking for this treatment to be stopped, but the prison officers refuse. I mean, it's utterly brutal. It's like going back in time. You think it would be going back in time when these things would not happen, but it's now. I don't know how this situation is going to be resolved because the hunger strikers are really determined So I don't know if the government will suddenly do a turnaround. At the moment, there's a lot of things going on connected to Palestine Action. So you have just completed was the first trial of the Filton 24 activists, of which some of the hunger strikers are part of this group. All of these activists were arrested, detained without trial under the Terrorism Act in connection to an attack on an Eldridge, I think it was a research and development factory or an arms factory in Bristol. 6 people were caught on site. So 6 people were caught inside this factory smashing up these weapons, Elbit being the largest Israeli weapons manufacturer that there is. So these 6 activists finished their trial at the end of last year. This is the first trial of any of them because there's so many. There's got to be several different trials. And the jury is deliberating on the verdict as we speak. So this verdict will probably come through this week as to whether or not they're found guilty or not guilty. On top of that, you've got Palestine Action appealed the ban, appealed the prescription. So there was a judicial review that happened in November. This was incredible too, because the day before the judicial review began, the judge who was supposed to preside over the case was removed by the government and replaced with 3 new judges, all of whom had known and exposed Zionist links. It was quite incredible.
Yeah.
So the result of the judicial review should arrive either this week or next. There's also, on Monday of this week, Craig Murray, who's long-standing campaigner for Palestine, he wants to hold a judicial review in Scotland to see whether the prescription of Palestine Action is legal in Scotland as opposed to England. We have different laws. So they went to court on Monday of this week. And again, the result of whether or not that will be able to move forward and the review will be able to happen, the results of that should also happen this week. So there's a lot going on.
Yes, and Lizzie, how do you see the impact of this case on the momentum of the solidarity movement in Scotland and other parts of the UK?
I think it's brought people even more together. I mean, there's been so many protests in relation to the hunger strikers because it's so urgent, because it is a matter of life or death. So you have people going down from Scotland to, there's a prison in Yorkshire where Heather, the woman who's on day 72, where she's being held. So protesters have gone down from different parts of the UK to protest outside that prison. They've gone down to the prison in London. So the protests are happening all the time. In fact, as we speak, there's a protest that my comrades are involved in here in Glasgow, which is outside the Labour headquarters. Again, it's a protest against the silence of this government in the face of dying in prison. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and Lizzie, as chair of the Scottish Pen, how do you see the role the writers and the artists in Scotland and other parts of the UK play in shedding light on the suffering of Palestine Action hunger strikers and at the same time highlighting the situation here in Palestine?
Okay, well, first I should say I'm not the chair, I'm the vice president of the Scottish Pen.
Yeah.
And I think the role of the writers and the artists, the musicians, I mean, you see bands like Kneecap, who are just right at the forefront of the struggle for Palestine liberation, you know. I think it's so important because they connect with young people, and that's really important too. I think it's really important that people keep writing, partly to maintain your own sanity, because I find writing really cathartic during these times. It might not change the world, but it helps me keep going within it. it is also the clampdown on freedom of expression that's going on now, with the arresting of people who say, I oppose genocide, I support Palestine action. Thousands of people, including me, being arrested for these kinds of statements under the Terrorism Act as well. I mean, this is a whole clampdown on freedom of expression, the right to protest, human rights in general, which of course includes writers within it. You know, if writers are not speaking up and writing up at this moment in time about the oppression and suppression that's going on, we will find that we have no voice to write with, or we have no words to write with. That will be in an Orwellian 1984.
Yes, and my final question to you, Lizzie, concerning hope. You know, when we look at the larger picture of the world today, it's difficult to have hope. As on the Palestinian level, we see how Israel decimated Gaza, and people are dying of cold now. And here, the West Bank is like divided into small parts, and people are crammed into pockets, really. You know, there is no sign of possible peace in this region. And a state of chaos, like in most countries of the world. But hope is a very important word. So as a writer, artist, how do you plant hope in the hearts of the people who watch you and who read your articles and your writing?
That's a really interesting question, a really important one. I think I totally agree with you, Osama. Hope is so important because we have to just cling on to it. I look, for example, at children in Gaza going to school in tents, despite the horror all around them. And when there's gunfire or bombs and they have to lie on the ground, I mean, you don't get any more dangerous or worse situation, but still the children are there, still the children are learning, and still the teachers are teaching. That to me is hope beyond hope, and it's beautiful, you know, because we cannot control the external, we cannot control the kind of external stuff. You know, we cannot control if somebody puts a gun in my head and shoots me. I can't control that person doing that. I can't. But what I can control, and what we all can control, is our kind of reaction, our response, and how we're prepared to live in the world. And I think one of my things, anyway, as a writer and as a human being, is laughter. And this has taken me quite a while, because most of last year I found laughter impossible. You know, the world is a really dark place. Laughter almost seems sacrilegious. But laughter is one of our strongest weapons, because they hate it. If you look at Donald Trump, for example, the one thing he hates is people laughing at him. They hate it. So, and the fascists hate it. You know, the fascists hate it if you undermine their forced, brutal, barbaric authority by laughing at them. They hate it. So laughter is one mechanism, you know, and it's subversive. Laughter has always been subversive. You know, it's always been there, and it puts a change in place. And just writing and documenting and bearing witness and saying, you cannot kill my voice. You can kill me. Sure, you can kill me, but you cannot kill my voice, and you cannot kill the last things I'm going to say before you kill me. And we still won.
Lizzie Eldridge, as always, it has been a great pleasure having you on our program. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Osama. It's such a privilege. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And from me, Osama Nazal, have a nice time.